Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be talking about 5 tips I have for new reptile owners. We're going to get a little bit more general today, so let's get into it. And here are my 5 tips if you just got a reptile. For those of us really involved in the reptile community, I feel like we tend to forget that probably a majority of reptile owners are people who just went to a PetSmart and PETCO and picked up a reptile and listened to whatever advice was given there. In reality though, these PetSmart and PETCO employees, they don't really know too much about reptiles, and it's really not their fault. It's kind of the structure of PETCO and PetSmart as it is, so sorry if you're a PetSmart and PETCO employee, but you really shouldn't listen to what they have to say. A lot of the stuff that are sold in PETCO and PetSmart, like the beginner kits and such, there's a lot of things that can be wrong with them and that you might need to tweak, and they might just overall be incomplete or just not something you should get into, and you really need to extend your research beyond what an employee at PETCO or PetSmart tells you. That's how you have to approach these guys. I guess this falls into the conversation of impulse buying as well, because I find usually people who get their reptiles at PETCO or PetSmart, it's almost like a last minute thing. They don't really research too well, or they're getting their kid a reptile that they've been asking for and they're just trying to appease their child or something like that. You really need to make sure you do proper research, just scouring the internet, talking to people before you go and get a reptile anywhere. You shouldn't be waiting to talk to an employee at the time of buying to know what you need to know about the care, proper care, for whatever reptile or animal you're buying. Obviously, this video is already coming from the perspective that you bought a reptile and you currently have one. So what you could do right now, if you kind of fell into this PETCO, PetSmart, impulse buying, whatever, just having generally not great information currently, is go and research it now. It's definitely not too late. I impulse buyed when I first got into reptiles. I wasn't like I am now. So it happens. It happens to the best of us. It's, you know, something you can recover from. So don't get discouraged. The important thing you do now is you research and find out the facts and talk to people and do what's best for your reptile that you have. Before moving on to number 4, if you guys would be so willing, I think it would be helpful to go in the comments and comment a mistake you've done with your reptiles or you did getting into the hobby. Give encouragement to a new owner who might be watching this video. I like to really have community support around people and really help people out, so contribute to that. So continuing the conversation of good and bad information and being properly prepared, there's also, this is what I'm talking about, guys. Every time, I just can't have a video without squeakers over there interrupting me. Let's see if I could get the bird this time. Make sure to check that lower right hand corner, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell as well for the latest updates on the channel. Right, bird? Anyway, guys, continuing that conversation of information, having that properly ready before you get your reptile, it's also important that when you have that information, you don't cut any corners. You set them up to thrive, not just survive. A lot of people, probably a majority of reptile owners, go into getting a reptile without having proper information. And I think the next step down is a lot of people go in with some information that they know, but still set up the environment improperly and try to cut some corners to save some money. My recommendation is don't be that guy, don't be that girl. It's not gonna actually even save you money because it'll just end up providing problems to your reptile anyway, and unless you really do not care at all about your reptile and neglect them, going to the vet when a problem comes up, then it's just going to end up costing you bills at the vet. So it's really not going to save you money unless you're very cold-hearted. This includes things like not giving the bare minimum. Yes, you could probably put an Ackie in a 4x2x2 and they will live almost as long as an Ackie in a much bigger environment. But are they really thriving or are they surviving? And if you're providing the bare minimums, I really think you should think about why you got the reptile in the first place. If you're passionate about reptiles, wouldn't you want to see them in an environment that's really extravagant for them and really allows them to exhibit their full behaviors and do a lot of cool, interesting things in there and just give them the nice bells and whistles they deserve? I think that if you're getting a reptile, you should be passionate about them in some regard, and if you're passionate about something, you should want to go that extra mile. Honestly, it's not even an extra mile, like I said, it really should be the standard. But I usually, whenever I do any of my setups, like to really go above and beyond. I like to give as big of an enclosure as I can really give at the time. One of my fantasies about owning reptiles is to put probably like a trio of Ackies, one male, one male, 2 females, in an 8x4x4. That would be so amazing to see. I just need the room for it. It would be so cool to see them in the same size enclosure Frapp is in right now. That would be so interesting. There would be so many cool behaviors going on in there. That's what you really should strive for if you have a passion for these guys. So my tip overall here is just to really make a condition and an environment, an atmosphere where your reptile is going to thrive, and really you'll get rewarded with their behaviors and actions you see, so it is of benefit to you as well. Just really give them what they deserve. They are living things, guys. That's what's important here, and they deserve the best. So that's my tip for number 4. Let's say you have all the information readily beforehand, before you got your reptile. You got them set up in a nice, awesome environment that they're thriving in. Now what? The one thing you could really fail at or not keep up with is that continuance of information, and new information coming out, and seeing what other people are doing. And that's why you want to engage with some sort of community. Even after you get your reptile and you did a bunch of research before you got them, and you have the setup all down pat, there's still a lot of questions that are going to come up when you're working with them day to day. When they have a poop that's a little bit diarrhea, you might want to check in with someone who has more knowledge on that reptile, or just get the perspective of other people. Don't just leave it to yourself. That's why when you look for a piece of information, you don't just rely on one piece of information. You look for many pieces of information, because often one piece can be biased, and you yourself are biased. So you do want to engage with a larger community for that reptile, just to keep up to date on their care and ask questions when they come up. Now, what communities am I talking about? Obviously, we have YouTube. There are so many great creators out there who form communities where they engage on Discord. By the way, if you want to join our Discord, where we have over 100 members chatting about reptiles daily, that's in the description. But YouTube communities are great. There's also Facebook communities, Facebook groups that interact so much. I've learned so much off of Facebook groups. There's additional forums out there. There's a lot of places. You just got to go searching. Just Google your sort of reptile that you owned or just got. Look at it on Facebook, stuff like that. Type in the name. Something will pop up, I guarantee it. Also, joining these communities, these groups, is a great way to find those keepers, usually breeders, who are on the forefront of gaining knowledge and information on this specific reptile you just got. Tegu file on Facebook if you just got a Tegu. There's a lot of great breeders in there who have such a repository of information to learn from, and are learning things daily and post about it. That's an example right there. So if you really want to see what's new with your species and get that insight, these groups are a great place to go to. So yes, wrapping up this tip, basically it's great to have the information ready and do your research prior to getting a reptile, but it doesn't stop there. You need to continue to study, and that is great reason to join and engage in a community so you can ask questions when you have them, and you're not on your own. It's terrible to be on your own. Plus, a great thing about a hobby is to share that hobby and share that passion, and you could do that by just sharing some fun pics on these communities and such. It's not just all about the information. Okay guys, number 2 coming at you now. Never slack. Again, drawing off the previous point, which has been a common theme of this video, engaging with the community is a great way to continually learn about your reptile and keep up to date with information, ask questions, see what people are posting about, and grow that repository of knowledge you have on that species. And that's kind of what I mean by never slack. You want to make sure you stay up to date on information with your species. You don't really not pay as much mind to them sometimes. I mean, we all go through periods where we're less or more enthusiastic about our keeping and our husbandry just because life happens. It's, you know, there's more out there than just reptile keeping, and sometimes we get busy, we get distracted, and that's fine. But ultimately, number 1, these are living things, and you got to make sure they have proper care because they are alive. And number 2, we want to minimalize those aspects of life as much as possible. And there's no reason or no fault of your own if you get busy or you have a life event come up. I don't want to kind of harp on that. It happens, life happens. But like I said, minimalize that, or find ways around dealing with that so that your husbandry for these reptiles doesn't suffer. Because when it starts to suffer and you don't pay as much attention to them, usually health problems come up. Usually you miss something that you would usually see that could be a concern. Maybe a mushroom is growing in a bioactive enclosure. Maybe your drainage layer is piling up. these are all things I've been through. So there you go. There's things right there that you could just miss that could cause a wider health issue for your reptile if you're not paying much mind to them. I guess if anything, the tip here is just to be aware of that, aware that you go through cycles where you're more and less passionate, more and less enthusiastic about your hobby or your passion or your care. It happens to all of us. Don't say this never happens to you. And like I said, life comes up. That's not your fault. It's just being aware of that and making sure that even if you have less time a particular week or something, you pay attention to at least the need to knows, you know what I mean? You pay attention to the essentials and you find time sometime during a week or sometimes during a few week span to read some information on them, ask a question if you're concerned, go look through their enclosure, making sure everything looks right. Basically, that's what I'm getting at. Okay guys, so let's wrap this up with the #1 tip I have for new owners. So we're just talking on Discord about this, about how reptiles really are not taken as seriously as, let's say, cats or dogs as pets. They are more throwaway animals. I know that's like kind of a terrible phrase to say, but there's so many times people go get a reptile and really don't think of them as a living thing and just something that really was not too expensive, especially, like I said, compared to cats and dogs. Another potential downside to some people is it's a lot easier, I guess, to resonate with a cat or dog. I mean, they have a little bit more human-like emotional capabilities than, you know, reptiles, so it's kind of easier to bond with them, and I think that kind of gives animals like reptiles or smaller mammals that really don't have that capacity a bad rap. Anyway, the real point of this tip here is that you need to respect them and need to treat them as a living thing. You need to treat them as almost a family member. I mean, I treat all my reptiles as family members. I love them. I would never give them up for anything. You could offer me a croc monitor tomorrow from Max and I would have to turn you down. Sorry. And ultimately, what this means is that if they are exhibiting a health issue, take them to a vet. You should do probably a yearly checkup with them at a vet anyway. At least send in a fecal yearly or something like that. You really need to acknowledge that they're living and breathing. I know I keep repeating that they're living things, but you gotta understand that. That's the real problem here. Just because they're very hardy animals and probably potentially less than a cat and dog in price, they don't exhibit the same behaviors as a cat and dog that make them really bond easily with humans, that doesn't excuse them to not receive your full respect, make you a responsible person who is in charge of their care, and really, if you're passionate about them, which, like I said earlier, if you're getting into reptiles, you should have some passion for them, you wouldn't want to treat them like that. So definitely don't try to cut some corners, save some money by, you know, hurting them or harming them in some way by not respecting their health. When approaching sort of this conversation and topic, I like to think if you were on the reverse side. Say you were your reptile, would you be happy at how you are being taken care of by you, your owner? You get what I mean. There's this whole paradox right there, but I think you get what I mean. And additionally, would you be content if your owner really didn't care much for you and you were suffering in your health in some regard? I wouldn't. I would want to live. I would want to survive and thrive. Like, that's what I would want out of life. So that's kind of how you have to think of it, is if someone put you in an enclosure and was responsible for taking care of you, you would want them to do it the best they possibly could. So that's the same respect you should give these guys. I always feel like this video turned into a little bit of a rant video, but anyway, I really think there's some good need-to-knows for new owners and such. I just feel like a lot of people casually get into reptiles and then fall really in love with them and get some more, and these are just some essentials you should really know going into owning a reptile and just sort of the mindset. It's no husbandry specifics I want to recommend to you guys. It's just an overall mindset, and I take this approach a lot with my 5 videos and videos in general. It's just how your mindset should be, how you should approach things, because that's really where you're going to do the more specific things from, if that makes sense. Anyway, guys, let me know if you like this video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Couple announcements before we wrap up. Shout out to the patrons, Darian J. I know I've had to cut you into some of the past videos I recorded before you joined Patreon, but now I am shouting you out. So, Darian J, thank you for joining the Patreon and being a patron. Thanks to Mahan's Bioactive Reptiles, Cat and Rick, Brian B, Herb M, Angela L, David T, and Smooth Cat. I really appreciate your support. You guys, too, can support the channel for as little as $1 a month. Check the top right for more information. Support the channel in a different way by rocking some Professor Herp merch. I just got my logo on today, but I got 3 more designs. I'll be to the left of my head, right at your screen. Check the Teespring link in the description for more information on those. And one more time, I want to thank you guys for watching this video, being a part of this community. I really enjoyed it and appreciate it. It's my favorite aspect of doing these videos. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next video.